And welcome to another FluteSpresso sponsored by Flute Specialists. My name is Callie Green Brewer, and I'm going to be your host today. And I'm delighted to be here this morning with Grammy Award-winning flutist Rhonda Larson. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Callie. I'm thrilled to be here. Great.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a FluteSpresso is a coffee chat live with famous flutists from around the world. So we do encourage you to engage as much as possible. If you have any questions or comments for Rhonda, leave them in the comments. To entice you to participate, we are going to choose randomly a participant from the comments at the end of the broadcast, and we'll be sending you a Flute Specialist mug that's been autographed by Rhonda. So make sure that you drop those questions in those comments. And we are just really, really happy to be here with you, Rhonda.
Yeah.
So to start out, I'd love to know where you guys are joining us from, what coffee beverage or tea beverage you're drinking this morning. Rhonda, what are you having?
Actually, I already had my coffee this morning, and I got to stick to a limit, So it's herbal tea, mint herbal tea. It's delicious. And by the way, what a beautiful mug. It's just completely substantial. I love it.
It is. I love the mug because I can do a very large cup of coffee. I actually this morning on my second cup, and I am notorious for having a little bit of coffee with my creamer. So I combined my favorite caramel and vanilla creams this morning. So yeah, it's delicious this morning.
And mine was hazelnut earlier,
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So to get started this morning, I would just like to do just a little bit of a brief, read a brief bio of Rhonda and some of her accomplishments, which they are many. Rhonda Larson is a Grammy Award-winning player of the flute, born and raised in the mountains of Montana. This big sky country in the Wild West helped form her into a nature-loving, free-spirited, trailblazing artist. I love that. Composing much of her own music, Larson's visionary force showcases her gold flute and an array of ethnic flutes in a new and refreshing light. Rhonda has also expanded the sonic capabilities of her instrument with entirely new techniques, most notably her inventive flute and voice unison performed simultaneously. I'm so excited to talk to you about that.
Oh, great.
So just getting started this morning, Rhonda, I think my biggest question is, how did you choose flute, or did the flute choose you?
Oh, thanks for saying that, because it really chose me. And I always say to people that I was born wanting to play flute, because it's really true. I have no idea when I first heard it. I'm the fourth of three older sisters, so the baby, so I must have, and everybody was in bands, so maybe I heard it from them, but I always knew I was going to play flute. And then I had to wait till fifth grade to start, because the band program, my folks weren't going to drive me to town to start early, because it was like 8 miles. That was a long way, growing up. And yeah, I mean, I literally, not until I was in college did I really thought that everybody arrived on the planet knowing what they were going to do, because mine was so strong, But when I was in college, I realized mine was the exception. It's exceptional that you know what you're going to do. Most people don't. And so it's amazing. And it's just been my whole life,
Absolutely. That's amazing. So you started studying at what age?
10.
Okay.
Yeah, fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
And I started piano. I started piano in probably second grade. My grandma, who lived next door, and I adored her, she taught me piano, so I could already read. And really, it was just like an appeasement to get to the flute, because it was like, I got to play, I mean, so much so, like the day in band in fifth grade, when they brought the instruments around you wanted to play to see if you could do it. And I was so scared, like, what if I couldn't play flute? Then my life is over. That's how strong it was. And so he brought over the flute and just put the head joint to my mouth. And he said, okay, try. And I blew a sound, and he said, okay, you can play.
That's for you.
It was amazing.
That's wonderful. So you always kind of knew that you wanted a career in music. That is rare.
Well, never did I think of it as a career. It was I mean, that came later that it's called a career, but oh my gosh, it just was so important to me, Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm dying to know, when did you discover your voice flute combination? When did you discover that? And when did you start kind of cultivating and developing that? Because it's so unique and just magical to listen to.
Well, thank you. Interesting thing, two things. First of all, I never ever thought I'd be writing my own music. It just never occurred to me. I wasn't a composer, because I grew up in the whole classical realm and loved Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff and everybody, I wasn't gonna be, I wouldn't do that. I didn't even think of being able to compose. And as time went on, after I was out of college and I had joined the Paul Winter Concert, and that's where I won my Grammy Award with that group. I left that group after a while to follow my own path, to find out what the path is going to be. And that's when I started writing music, because I was just desperate for music that I like to do certain things with flute. And, I was just desperate for my own kind of music. So the first piece I ever wrote was Lament. And that was because I had a broken heart at the time. And so that melody, the opening melody, had come to me. And then I started working with a synthesizer to have an accompaniment part to it. And that piece just happened really fast, which was shocking to me. And I thought, well, that's a one-off, that's and then we were making my first recording, Free as a Bird, and I was trying to write another piece, and this one ended up being Moving On. And again, it was like a miracle, that piece just came out. It took time, but I tried to go as fast as I could, because it was I wanted it to be on the new recording, and so long time, into the future within writing my own music. I finally one day, because I've always heard the flute vocal thing, and it's the buzz, and it's got a cool effect if you want to use it like that. And I wondered to myself, I wonder if it's possible to have the two at the same time without the buzz. And then, so I started doing that one day, just like trying it. Um, and nothing was even close, until one day I started to hear the answer. The answer was, yes, it's possible. So as soon as I knew it was possible, I had to just keep going. It literally took me 2 years. I wasn't doing it every day, obviously, but it took 2 years before I ever did it in public, because I had to, first of all, count on it too, So yeah, it was a 2-year thing, and I'm so grateful for it, because one of the things that's really important to me about flute, growing up in Montana, my mom always had me play for everybody who would come over to our house or whatever, no matter, like if I went home now, she would say, play for us, and I love that. But when I was in college, when she would ask me, I felt, because I was 100% classical with the blinders on, and I felt like, well, what do I play? I mean, if I play Mozart, the accompaniment missing. If so I was like, so I got into composing solo flute pieces, because, oh my gosh, I didn't want to have to rely on having another person, because then you had to have another person. You had to, have to find them. And so the flute vocal thing also really interested me, because there was the first time I could provide harmony. I mean, my writing before that, like Be Still My Soul, that's very fast. So the harmony and melody are built into the same thing, but that's by speed. Like a guitarist, they can play the melody line and they're doing the accompaniment at the same time. So that's that kind of piece. But then the flute vocal, I mean, obviously it's got some limitations, because it's based on my own voice, where it can go best, and where the flute sounds best with it is in the lower notes. So it's limited in that way, but oh my gosh, it's just, haunting, to say the least. And then, well, if it works, live.
Absolutely. Well, and it gives you such a very distinct, it's so when now that I've been listening to some of your music more and more often, the second I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's Rhonda, and it
Oh,
just gives
wow.
that distinct. And I love that. I think that's really, really wonderful.
That's beautiful.
My family, I'm going to joke that you're now the Pied Piper of my family. If I need my children or my husband to come into the room, I just need to play your music, because every time I do, they just gravitate from wherever they are in the house, and they come to where I am, and they just stand there and they're mesmerized. So it's just breathtaking, your pieces. I really love
Wow. That gives me goosebumps.
Well, and that's like you've said, I've read some of your quotes, that's why we are artists and musicians, to make that impact. So you're definitely doing that.
Wow.
So what tips do you have for people who would like to start out learning this? Because I will admit that I definitely did, lock myself in my room and try to do it. And I was very unsuccessful at first.
Wow. I'm in the midst of making a teaching video about it, so it could be more, but like, let me just see. I haven't really played today, but it's a whole, well, I can't say it's an entirely different embouchure, but it's, the more the years go on with me doing it, it's more similar than it seems so different. And what really worked for me early on was the thought that I didn't want to think of it as a flute sound and a vocal sound. I I wanted to think of it as um, an entirely otherworldly sound,
Mhm.
so that so I didn't have this, cerebral impression of it. Like, this is an effect, maybe. And so, in a way, I think it's kind of like being probably, a ventriloquist, because my mouth cannot change. Literally, I can't change the shape of what's happening there. And yet I'm going to use my voice, and it has to come through at the same time. So let me see, like, if I do Be Still My Soul. That wasn't Be Still My Soul. That was a whole different tune. But okay, so here's the actual. If I separate those two sounds, so now hear the flute sound with this. It's that quiet. Now, as I get going, the voice gets going, and the two happen at the same time. It fortifies the overall sound, so then it sounds louder. If I do it in front of an audience, I usually do it with, next to it, near to a mic, because it's actually pretty quiet, even the flute sound. Here it sounds pretty big, and I think it's gotten louder. And I took a long time, like, does the flute sound, should the flute be louder, or should the voice be louder? And then that became obvious, that the flute is background. Yeah. And right there, I think that's a key of how to start, is start holding just one vocal note. It doesn't, I think the most difficult thing to do with it is unisons. So that starts with a unison, but at least it grounds me on the thing. So don't get frustrated, but I would recommend, don't start with unison. Start with, if a third is easy, or a fifth. Start, yeah, third or fifth would work, but and do the unisons later. And then you will get used to, in a way, I have to kind of buck teeth up here, the upper lip, kind of I assume it's just sort of generating it into the flute more. So I get the flute sound, but I think most of it's going to the vocal sound, you know.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that was going to be my next question is what's going on in here, when that happens? Because one thing that I find difficult as a teacher sometimes is, because you can't see inside the mouth. And so
Yeah.
really being able to describe what's happening, it can be difficult.
That's right. Let me just analyze that for a second. Yeah, it's what I thought, but I want to make
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
My tongue is completely lowered, and this is all dropped as if I'm gonna swallow, which I
Okay.
think is really the real sound anyway. I mean, like we should be really, not should, there's no shoulds, but you want to be as relaxed as possible. But that cave of my mouth is really open.
Mm.
And so really this is what's directing. It's really about the air, I think, more than anything. Yes, you have to learn how to engage your vocal cords and also stop them, which I find really hard. Like to hold a note, stop the vocal, keep going on the note, which I can do, but that's hard too, like a unison. Anyway, I hope that helps, but like just openness, and if you get that whisper tone, I'm on a low C, by the way.
Mhm.
So the
Okay.
higher you go on the flute, the more difficult. I'll just do a G or a D.
Mhm.
That's the quality of the actual flute sound.
Mhm.
And the whole idea being I didn't want the buzz.
Mhm.
So it's pretty an empty sound, but with the vocal thing, it turns into something new.
It
I
does.
think, yeah. And I mean, even even my dog, the first time I played it for my dog, because I wanted to see,
Uh,
like, would he react to anything? Because, he's kinda new at the time, and, I played the whole piece actually of Metamorphosis for the dog. And it was so interesting at the times he would look up at me, and it was I kind of thought he might, but I've also played, for animals and they don't even react.
Mhm.
But, he always reacts when I do the flute vocal thing. He's like, "What?"
He was your first audience member for this.
That's right,
That's incredible.
exactly. Yeah, before I dare go with people, you know?
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, really beautiful. You're right. It almost, you take the two things, stack them together, and it just makes this whole new, morphs into just this amazing sound.
Yeah, and then now I want to, like, what else can I do with that,
Mhm.
So we'll see. And I've tried it on ethnic flutes as well,
Okay.
and it works almost easier, in a way, some of them, so yeah, it's a interesting thing. I'm always looking for, I'm not looking specifically for something different. I'm looking for something that supplements what I do and what I might do with things, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, and you mentioned ethnic flutes. I know that obviously you were just playing. It's a what flute are you playing right now? I know, cheers, right? It's a pearl, isn't it?
It is a pearl. It's
Okay.
a beautiful 12 karat gold,
Mm-hmm.
and the head joint is Miguel Arista head joint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I change around the head joint a lot of times when that's what I have one flute really, and that's this flute.
Mhm.
And so, but I have 3 head joints. So I kind of, when you feel like, what's happening? This isn't working. Then I swivel around to another head joint, and it, amazingly, it's probably a placebo, but it really works.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what ethnic flutes? I've seen so many videos of you of all kinds of different flutes. What are some of the ethnic flutes that you use?
Well, what the first and see, this is another thing that was a surprise in my life besides writing music. I never ever had this idea of playing like ethnic flutes.
Mhm.
I didn't even know they were out there like that. And when I left the Paul Winter Consort, the very last concert I played with them officially, at least played for many of them since, but the last official one, I was buying a bansuri from a guy in California. That's where the concert was.
Mhm.
And so I was getting my new bansuri. Bansuri is means bamboo in India. So it's a bamboo flute, and it was a D, which is kind of longer, beautiful sound. And so I got that flute at that concert. And when I got home, it was like, of course I can blow it, like you can blow a pop bottle, you can blow anything. Flute players can blow anything, even a pen, the inside of a pen, make it go really high. So, so this I was playing and I was thinking, oh, how am I ever going to learn this? Because it's a whole different fingering thing, where you place your fingers. I kind of cheated on the left hand, because I put them where I do the flute. But it really started out with that one flute, the bansuri, and I learned how to play it. I loved the earthy sound of it. There was what was so enlightening to me was, our flute is all about refinement and purity and, that kind of thing. Well, this bansuri, it's got this airiness to it. It's a real earthiness. That is its character. And it's so cool because it's like a freedom. Like, that is this sound, and it feels different, So then I knew that it needed its own music, so that's how that came along. And literally all the ethnic flutes that I play, I've learned them one by one. Some of them are, I play on them. I won't look at if they have any kind of fingering charts or whatever. I never look at those, because I want to get to know that whatever it is, if it's this way or if it's this way, flute, I want to get to know its sound and its character. How is it with articulation? Is it good with that? Or is that, tubby? So I've learned them and then written pieces for them. And it's been a big surprise for me. In concerts, it makes it so much more for the audience too, and the thing is, like, flute players, I hope people would be inspired to try other flutes. The thing is that blows my mind that in all of history, the two oldest instruments are percussion and flute. And because of that, there are all these unique and intimate and different flutes all around the world. Every country has like their own flute, or it's just astounding to me. So I've collected tons of them, or been given them. Some of them should be, lamp stands, really. They're not really playable, but most of them are, and they're just incredible. So that opened up a whole nother world for me in every way, both musically and for playing the flute. And at first I remember thinking, like, wow, this might take away from my flute, It did exactly the opposite. It fed my interest, and it fed, like, I don't know, I had a greater freedom going back to the flute, when I do those things. Sometimes it's a little tricky in concert because you're doing a lot of different embouchure stuff. But I've gotten used to it. And even pan pipes, they're just so, so beautiful. And in some cases, and Native American flutes, I always tell audiences, general public audiences, that if you ever wanted to play an instrument, pick a Native American flute, because it just goes right in your mouth, in the tip of your mouth. It blows immediately. It makes the sound immediately. It's got the holes. You just play with it and get to know it. And it's a beautiful instrument outdoors as well. Obviously, that's where it comes from. And so I love all of that. And in some cases, like the bansuri, I really haven't gone to the Indian style of playing it. I really am just in love with the flute sound as it is. So I just have my own music for it, my own style. But it's also opened up all these other countries and indigenous, people, and the sounds that it makes is just so satisfying, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So speaking of outdoors, I know that you're an avid outdoorsman, and that you also do yoga. And how do you incorporate the yoga that you do into your practice routine, or your teaching, or your performing? How do you How do you put those two together?
Well, that's great. They actually go together like they're made to go together. Um, and now I will say, let's see, I think in the early 2000s is the no, actually in the late 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah. I had got to the point where I really needed, like, I need to do stretches, and I was running at the time, jogging, and never really loved jogging. I mean, I love that I can run and stuff, but it was always so grueling, and it was always like the hardest thing. To this day, I think it's the hardest thing you can do in a day is jog for 2 miles. But the stretching was really, I really needed it, and my sister had given me a whole series. At that time, it was VHS videos
Mhm.
of yoga stuff. And the one that I watched and then became complete, and I completely learned it from the video, was from Rodney Yee. And
Mhm.
and it was, when I watched it first, and you are encouraged to watch it before you try to do it. I watched it and I just thought, that is so beautiful. The
Mhm.
beauty of how the body is moving, and what, their poses really,
Mhm.
but it's a routine. And so I started doing that, just to keep limber. And over the years, I mean, I'm so surprised that I'm still doing yoga, and it's an absolutely necessary part of my life. I couldn't It changes my energy.
Mhm.
Certainly it changes how I feel, but it it just seems like it gets the energy in the right place. And so what I really try to do is start my I'm pretty set on what I do in a day, because I work
Mhm.
at home if I'm not on the road. And as I
Okay.
always tell my husband, hey, I work at home. I want
Mhm.
my own brain for the till 5 o'clock. And so I try to start out with yoga, very first thing. Usually I take a walk in the woods or something.
Mhm.
But then, and I will either do yoga outside there. I will do it. I've done yoga everywhere. I've done it in China on top of a huge mountain, that anyway, I've done it in on bridges, because
Mhm.
it's scary, I it's like you have to have that inner peace. So doing it in the morning before I pick up my flute, because that's the other thing for me. My mornings, I try never to have anything outside scheduled, because that's when I really do my the hardest work,
Mhm.
yoga, and then to flute. And it's such a difference for a flute, because sometimes I'll come in and I'll just start practicing flute, and I have to really encourage my body to get to the right place, because I didn't do yoga. But for example, I would never go do a performance having not done yoga beforehand, because everything just has to find its place
Mhm.
of peace in a way. And I think that's really what suddenly became clear to me, is like, it's a silent activity, and it has such peace in it. It's You're just like x-raying your body as you do the moves, and trying to do them right, and let things breathe and let things open up. So it's an incredible thing. I mean, I can't say enough about it. And so all these years, I've only had the Rodney video, but I memorized it, so then
Mhm.
I don't even have to see the video anymore. But then, just before COVID hit, my husband had bought me a retreat with Rodney Yee and his wife at Kripalu, a place up here that's a yoga, famous yoga place,
Mhm.
that I could go to a 3-day retreat with Rodney Yee. And that was like in February of the COVID year, which
Wow.
happened in March. And oh my God, it was so amazing. But that was my first class. I had
Mhm.
never gone to a class. I don't see and I didn't see a need to go to a class, because you're doing your own work. But that's kind of like saying, hey, I can play the flute without a teacher,
Mhm.
but you really can, I got a long ways with it, and it was just beautiful to do it in a class. And
Mhm.
but they used all the Hindu names. I
Mhm.
was probably the only one, like, looking around the class like, what does that mean? And then I was like, oh, he's talking about down dog.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I highly recommend it to anybody. And as the clock ticks on my life, it's it's imperative to do yoga. It's so revitalizing and beautiful and maintenance. It's like
Mhm.
if I have some problem, I can go fix it with yoga. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. So yeah, so that's it, they go together, and flute, this is really awkward
Mhm.
because we're either like if I keep my torso straight,
Mhm.
there's my arms, this one's really having to do a thing. This one's fine, but that doesn't really work. Your torso really has to turn for it to be, so then you've got to get the whole stance,
Absolutely.
so that when you play, that freedom continues, I mean, that's my goal anyway. I
Mhm.
try for the greatest, uh, relaxed freedom, so it just comes through me, like, I become the instrument, hopefully, boom, you
Mhm.
know?
That's incredible. Oh my goodness, Rhonda, I could talk to you all day. I want to kind of go now into our lightning round and ask you some questions here, just to kind of wrap up our chat. This has been really, really wonderful.
Sure.
So my first question for you is, what is your favorite musical memory? You probably have a lot.
Um, well, let's see, that is hard, and I actually think not necessarily musical, but
Mhm.
music-oriented was
Okay.
winning the Grammy because, when we won that year, we never dreamed we'd win, the Paul Winter concert, that was us that and Paul Winter didn't go to the show at the Grammy it was at, Radio City Music Hall in New York.
Mhm.
That was really extraordinary, the whole experience to be part of that, and, of course, you're in the part of the broadcast that doesn't make it on TV because,
Mhm.
it's the new age category, that's what that
Mhm.
was, and, but that didn't matter, it was so mind-blowing to me. You leave the stage, and they take you downstairs, and you're in this incredible, enormous maze
Mhm.
of publicity. First, you go to radio, and they talk, then you go to television, I mean, it's this whole thing,
Mhm.
and then I remember one time we're in this one, and it's all the cameras and everything, and they're all saying your name, like, nobody knows who we are at all, and they're going, "Rhonda, Rhonda." So I'll look at their camera, it was like it was
Mhm.
bizarre, it was like what you'd see on TV, but not experience, so, it was really memorable, and plus, it's
Mhm.
just, that's the highest honor in the recording industry
Mhm.
of our craft. So
Mhm.
that's another great thing. So that's probably the one. But I have
Absolutely.
lots of good, good
That's really special.
yeah.
Absolutely. Where is your favorite place that you've traveled?
I'd have to say Italy for sure because my husband and I have a place over in Italy. We got married there,
Mhm.
uh, not thinking we were gonna live there, but it just happens we got married there, and it's a mystical, incredible place.
Mhm.
They call it well, they have a movement for food, for restaurants over there, and it's called slow food. It's slow life. It's slow food, slow life. It's just beautiful. They really know how to, um they live in the moment in a very beautiful way, and they appreciate everything, around them. And when you have a meal, it's gonna last at least 4 hours
Mhm.
because you're there to just be and
Mhm.
communicate, and have family and friends, and so, yeah, Italy, hands down.
I think we could all use a little bit of slowing down in our life.
Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
yes.
Who is your favorite artist? It could be flute, otherwise. Who's your favorite artist?
That's really tough because, I mean, I realize, most of mine that I can think of are in the past.
Mhm.
I think because, like, when you start out, you're looking for you're always looking for inspiration or you're inspired by things. So um, mine is I think one of them when I was in college that just blew my mind was seeing Mikhail Baryshnikov dance. It in the movie White Nights.
Mhm.
It blew my mind. I don't even know what happened in the rest of the movie. Just every time he danced, I was like, oh, that's how I want to play flute. It was and to this day, I have that video, the DVD. Just extraordinary as a dancer. Horowitz, I've always loved Horowitz, a fiery player, and just so beautiful. Heifetz has always been a favorite of mine, again, fire in the belly. I mean, and I have to say, even Lizzo, I absolutely adore her. She's got an incredible voice, and the fact that she's putting the flute out there, I'm so thrilled, because that's really what I'd have to say is like the general public doesn't really know the flute like I feel it should be known, so God bless her for getting it out there. And I just love her spirit. That's a beautiful, authentic being there,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This is my shameless plug, Lizzo. If you're watching, it is my goal to get you on FluteSpresso. So we're
well,
going to work on that.
That's so cool.
All right. And the last one, maybe the most important one. What is your favorite coffee beverage?
Well, perhaps it isn't coffee. What should I do?
Maybe is it tea? What's your favorite?
Actually, it used to be tea, but it's
Okay.
definitely coffee now, and it is hazelnut cream. That's what I usually go for, or even a vanilla, whatever. But I'm same with you. It's a lot of I put milk in it, and I love that. But for years and years, and I go back and forth, sometimes. Chai tea, Celestial Seasons chai tea, I totally love, and of course that's an excuse for milk and honey.
Always.
Yeah.
A little bit of sugar goes a long way.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Truly, this has been so informative and engaging. And just thank you so much for sharing your gift and your talents with the world. We've had several people in the comments talking about how they've seen you in concert, how you were just mesmerizing, inspirational, gracious, just all the adjectives that we would associate with you. It's just, everyone has just talked about how amazing you are as a performer and a person. So truly, thank you for sharing your talents and gifts with the world.
Wow, that means so much. Thank you, Callie. It's just wonderful to talk to you.
Absolutely. So Flute Specialist is proud to carry all of Rhonda's music. So if you're looking for something innovative and exciting and new, we would encourage you to just visit us online or even call the store, and we can definitely get you some of Rhonda's incredible music. This broadcast will be available afterwards at some point. It might take us a day or two to edit, but it will be on our website and also on YouTube. So feel free to share with your friends, and make sure that you do like and subscribe to us on social media, and also subscribe to our newsletter so that you can be informed. And we look forward to seeing you at the next FluteSpresso. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Callie. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Rhonda.
Thanks for all the great comments.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Ciao.